The TC Electronic Impulse IR Loader. Can it sound like a real amp, or does it just plain old suck? Let's find out. So first order of business, I want to let you know that I purchased the Impulse IR Loader. This is not a sponsored video. So the TC Electronic Impulse IR Loader is a very small form factor pedal that allows you to load and play through impulse responses. The pedal comes with 25 different impulse responses, many of them direct from Celestion, which is cool. And you can then load your own impulse responses in addition, up to 99. Some of you may be thinking, what is an impulse response? Well, basically, you can think of it as a sonic fingerprint of a room or hall, a microphone, or a speaker cabinet. In other words, there's technology that allows you to capture the tonality of that device, let's say a speaker cabinet, store it in a small file, and then stick it into a pedal or a piece of software and play through it to simulate the original tonality of the source. And in this case, we've got a lot of speaker cabinets and even some amps modeled or impulse responsed in this little pedal. So here is my dry tone with the pedal turned off. Not a bad sound, but you can tell that I'm going direct from the guitar, essentially right into my audio interface, into my recording software. Let's bring in the Impulse IR Loader. I've got this set to the very first IR, and it's called a 112 Celestion. It's actually the G12M 112 Celestion speaker. So this is a 112 speaker cabinet filled with a Celestion speaker. As you can hear, the tonality changed. Let me turn it off. You can really hear how the impulse response shapes the tonality of the sound. All right, let's navigate to the second IR. I'm just going to press that right button. And now we've got an Alnico Celestion Blue 2x12 cabinet. This is a cabinet that you might find paired with a Vox AC30, for example. Here's what that sounds like. Let's go back to the 112. Quite a difference, isn't it? Back to the Alnico Blue. Now I've switched it to stock IR number 3, which is a Celestion Vintage 30 4x12 cabinet. Here's what that sounds like. That's got a lot more low end than the Celestion Blues. Yeah, it's quite different, isn't it? Now, we don't just have speaker IRs in this little pedal. We also have amp plus speaker IRs in this pedal. Let's check out a couple. Here's an impulse response of a Marshall JCM 800 paired with a 4x12 cabinet loaded with Celestion Vintage 30s. Yeah, if you listen to the mid-range, I know this is totally clean, but listen to the mid-range. It does have that flavor of a JCM 800 with those vintage 30s. Here's a JCM 900 paired with a cabinet loaded with greenbacks. That's a lot different than the 800 with the vintage 30s. Check that out again. Let's try one more. Here's a combination of a Vox AC30 and a Celestion Gold. Again, even though it's totally clean, you can kind of get a little bit of that chimey thing that you hear in Voxes. Now, this is pretty boring, isn't it? Well, you can go ahead and add delays in, which is kind of cool. Still, even though this is an IR of an amp plus a speaker, it sure doesn't feel like I'm playing through an amp. This is where distortions and overdrives come into play. Let's check that out. All right, I've added a TC Electronic Mojo Mojo, or Moho Moho, depending on your pronunciation, into the mix. It's a vintage voiced distortion or overdrive. Again, here is the 800, JCM 800 plus the vintage 30s. All right, here is what that sounds like with some distortion cranked up pretty high directly into that pedal. Now that's interesting. Let's go ahead and bring up the treble a little bit, bring down the bass. It's kind of got that boxiness, right? That mid-range thing that Marshalls have. Here's a little distortion. I mean delay. Here's the JCM 900 combination. Oh yeah. Now I've got to level match this a little bit, and there's hardly any bass or low end compared to the JCM 800. So let's adjust the distortion pedal a little bit. All right, this is the Vox AC30 plus the gold Celestion combination with the distortion. Yeah, to me that sounds a little more Voxy than the Marshalls sound Marshally, if that makes sense. Here's a little bit of delay on this tone. Kind of cool. Now let's see if we can get a crunch tone dialed in that's not quite as overdriven. We'll see what this sounds like. I'll bring it almost all the way down, the drive that is. I kind of like that. Now, that to me sounds pretty nice. However, it still does not have the feel of an amplifier. The Mojo Mojo, I'm going to call it that, really is just meant to be an overdrive that front ends a real amp. I'm not getting the response of the amp from the IR loader. So let's try another pedal. All right, as you can see, I have got the Strymon Riverside patched in now. The thing about the Riverside is it's meant to create amplifier-like distortion in a pedal. It's not an amp modeler, but it does have some amp-like qualities to it. So again, here's that AC30 plus Celestion Gold combination on its own. Let me go ahead and switch in the Riverside. Yeah, it feels a little more amp-like now. I'm getting a little bit of that natural compression that you would get with an amp. And, you know, it sounds really good with delay. And of course, the Riverside has really great tone control options. So it's kind of like having tone controls on an amplifier. Yeah, kind of cool. Now, let's say I bring the gain up. I'm going to leave the drive on. Actually, there's a gain setting, high or low. So I'm going to leave it on the low gain setting. And let's see if we get a nice crunchy sound here. And of course, with the Strymon Riverside, if I back off on the volume control, yeah, it cleans up really well. And, of course, delay again. So like I said at the beginning of the video, can the Impulse IR loader sound like an amp, or does it just plain old suck? And I think the answer is, it depends. If you're looking for this to replace your amplifier, or a more elaborate amp modeling unit like the Strymon Iridium or Helix or Headrush or whatever you might have, this thing ain't going to do it because it only models through the impulse response a part of the signal chain. A real amplifier has a lot of other things going on to give it that feel and sound of an amplifier. However, if you've got a small pedal board and you're looking to put together a sound very quickly that approximates an amp, well, you know, if you get a decent overdrive pedal, say like the Strymon Riverside, even the Mojo Mojo's pretty good, and then combine it with the Impulse IR loader, you can get some pretty interesting sounds. So here's a playlist of some performance pieces that I've done using the Impulse IR loader. Check them out. I'll see you over on those videos.